All right, so folks, this is a 2005 Triton TR21X, and I've done some upgrades to the boat, Garmin units, live scope, all that fancy stuff, power poles, Ultrex. But I get out on the lake and I'm fixing to use my live wells. Well, I'll show you what's going on here. So I turn on the bilge and it won't come on. Live wells, nothing at all. But I do have power over here. I don't know if you can see that red light is on. All my nav lights, all that stuff's working, but this panel over here is not responding. So what I did was I got a meter and I made sure I had power to the switches. And what this has got, I'm going to show you when I pull it apart, but this panel is like digital, and it's got like this board in there behind there, and it's got a ribbon cable and then a wiring harness that plugs into it that goes to the boat, goes to the devices. So you can't just switch out one of these switches, and these panels are not cheap. So what I've done is and we'll get to we'll show you those in a minute. I have bought the conversion kit to the rotary switch type. So without further ado, I'm going to show you how to take this off, show you how easy it is to replace one of these. So basically you take your 4 screws out. Let's try a better screwdriver. I just wasn't cutting the mustard. And these cosmetically don't look good anyway, so we'll pop these 4 screws out of here. I could probably go get my little DeWalt impact driver and have these out in a jiffy, but get these out of here. Now, one last screw. And I'll show you what the back of these look like, and then when I get the conversion panel out of the box, I'll show you what the back of those look like. They are different. Put your screws somewhere where they're not going to get lost. So what we have, if you haven't noticed, is you have this digital touchpad, and then you have a board with a ribbon cable in the back, and that ribbon cable comes from the switches. Like all the switches come through these little wires in the ribbon cable, and they come up to this board right here, and here's all your like switches and timers and stuff for your live wells. Well, because even just one switch goes bad, you can't replace just one switch, the whole thing goes bad. So what we're going to do is we're going to unplug this just like that, and the switch is out. Now you can replace these, but they're costly. So I bought the conversion kit for both sides, which if you calculate it down to each side, it's cheaper for each side. And you'll see in a minute why, if you have a switch go bad on the conversion, the rotary switch, if one of those switches go bad, you can replace that switch for like 10 or 15 bucks. And it's really easy to do. So it's overall better to have the rotary style switches. So anyway, let's get the new switch out. So what we've got here, and I'll show you the difference too. This one's got the bezel on it. I'll take the bezel off of that one. Basically the same exact controls. I don't know if you can see that, but you have all the same controls, the same exact locations. The panel and the bezel are all the same size. So we're going to plug in. Down at the bottom here we have this harness, and the wiring harness that's in here is going to plug in right here, and we're going to pop the 4 screws back in, and we're going to be done with this side. We'll do the same thing on the other side, and we'll see if it works. So we're going to test this one first. So we take this bezel right here out. First we'll plug in the harness. Now I got to make sure we're on the right end. So I've got orange and blue on this side, orange and brown on that side. I'm not real sure. Okay, it looks like if you look at the pinout, okay, there's only one way it can go in. So you have a flat side on those and a flat side on these. So if you were to try to put this on backwards, you wouldn't be able to do it. So it goes like this. So if you look at your pinout, there's flat sides on these. There's flat sides on the ones on top and bottom, and then on this side there's a flat side on the middle one. So if you look at your mating surface, flat on the middle, not on the edges, flat on the edges, not in the middle. So we're going to flip that over and plug it in, make sure it's good and tight. And it looks like they are clipped down. You want to make sure the retainer clips actually clip in. Okay. And then make sure you're, oh boy, I was kind of afraid of this. Just got to get it situated. I've got a couple of zip ties that we are now in there. So before we do anything else, which I should have, well, the switches are illuminated. I don't know if you can tell, but I'll hold my hand over them. Switches are all supposed to be off right now, but I'm going to turn on the bilge first. I hear the bilge running. Excellent. Turn on port pump, starboard pump. These are the live well pump outs, all that's working. So they illuminate in yellow when they're off and red when they're on. The manual timer is showing red, but it looks like the middle is showing red either way. But you don't have to worry about it. It's not on unless you turn your live wells on. But without further ado, I'm going to pop these 4 screws in, and we're going to pause the video till I get to the other side.
Go.
All right, so now we have the power side with all your accessories, your anchor, your nav lights, your floor lights, box and floor lights, and 2 extras for whatever you might want to wire. Those are spares, and I can't remember what I've got wired to them. I think I've got live well lights on one of them, but anyway, you can see that basically they have the same layout as the digital switches. Okay, so this one is not bad. It still works. Now it's cosmetically needs some work, but I'm going to try to find somebody that may want it. I'll ship it to them. This one here looks a lot cleaner. The bezel's not cracked. If you can see, this one's got a crack. I actually plastic dipped these. Used to be wood grain color. But one thing I didn't mention the last time, a couple of things I didn't mention, I'm going to go back and do the other side because I forgot to put dielectric grease on this connection. It's a good idea to put dielectric grease in there before you connect that. That way you prevent corrosion, resist water, anything like that. So I'm going to do the other side again, not on the video, but I'm going to do it again. This is, like I said, the driver's side. And one thing else I didn't mention, I went over how this switch looks. Well, going back to what I was saying, if one of these switches, well, let's say this again, one of these switches goes bad on this panel, you have to replace this whole thing. And one of these sides is like 280 or 300 bucks, somewhere in there, just for one side. Well, I converted both sides. The kit that I bought, it's called a conversion kit, for, I don't want to put a price out there because I don't know what somebody would charge you, but it's between $400 and $600 to do both of them. Plug and play, ready to go. You could probably build your own little panel, put your own labels on there, buy these switches separate, which brings up another point here in a minute. You could buy the switches separate and do this yourself if you're handy, but I don't have a lot of time right now, and I'm fixing to fish a couple of tournaments, so I needed to get this done, and I didn't want one side done and not the other, so I just bought the whole kit for both sides. So going back to the switches and you being able to do it yourself, you can buy these switches individually. That's another advantage of these. Look on the back here. Basically, if one of these switches go bad, you pop this knob off, you take this switch out, take a picture of your wiring, put a new switch in, They're like 10 or 15 bucks online, and bam, you're ready to go again. So it's a no-brainer. But anyway, I'm going to get this one installed, and I hope this helps somebody else that has this style of switches on a Triton boat. Y'all tight lines and happy fishing.